We have been covering the fact that it seems like, at least during the daytime Fox News coverage of the January 6th hearings. So why do I say that? The nighttime opinion shows that hosts Tucker Carlson, Sean Hannity, Laura Ingraham, they are more unhinged than the daytime coverage that tries to be a little bit more newsy and a little bit more official. And so usually, though, they do everything they can to still cover for the Republican Party, to still cover for Donald Trump. And it seems like they're shifting a lot in their willingness to criticize Trump for January 6th, to recognize the groundbreaking information that is coming out of the January 6th hearings, and to give an honest take on all of that. That's good news, because you hope that conservatives watching Fox News, many of them watch it religiously, will slowly start having this information trickled to them through this daytime coverage and hopefully have their minds changed. And so an example of this is just today, the 7th January 6th hearing happened. And in the coverage during the recess, so during the break of this hearing, the live reaction to it by these Fox News hosts and correspondents was actually pretty reasonable. And again, that's good for any random conservative in rural America or wherever watching Fox News during the day and getting a kind of honest assessment of what's going on. So let's check it out.
And Jonathan, on this, with regard to how Pat Cipollone is sort of carving out the executive privilege, because we have other people who were involved at that level who said that they won't testify because of that. And you can hear him saying, well, I can't talk about what the president said in that meeting, but I'll tell you what I felt overall.
Yeah, I mean, it is.
Yeah, I thought it was actually.
Go ahead, John.
Oh,
Oops.
I actually thought it was very interesting because Cipollone was very abridged, very narrow, very careful in his remarks. He specifically at one point said, I don't want to say anything that the president said in these meetings. And so he's trying to hold that line. This did not seem to be a gold mine for the committee. And in fact, there were some reports that Cipollone was not specifically asked about contradictions that he had with other witnesses.
So giving some,
but he was,
right-wing appeal, of course. But as you'll see, they do recognize that there's important stuff coming out of the hearings, which is more than you can say for a lot of right-wing media coverage of this.
Trying to keep that careful line. Now, it's still damaging. The account of that meeting in the office is really breathtaking. It's very disturbing. At one point, there was a suggestion that there might be fisticuffs. It was almost like Dr. Strangelove and the president saying there's no fighting in the war room. It was just a bizarre moment of you're in the Oval Office and people seem to be actually chest pounding. So this is very disturbing. All of these details.
So, of course, if you missed my coverage of that January 6th revelation, there was a meeting between the Sidney Powell, Mike Flynn wackos and the more reasonable Trump staffers and then Trump. And it got so explosive that people were physically threatening one another and pretending like they were gonna get in some physical altercation. That's how heated it got, because the White House staff was asking people like Sidney Powell, what evidence do you have? And they obviously didn't have any, so it got really heated.
Disturb everyone. But the question is, what is trying to be achieved here? Are they trying to show they've got an actual criminal case? Are they trying to amplify the previous narrative?
And to that point, Andy, where we're going to go now when the committee reconvenes is to see what influence the president's tweets might have had on these far right-wing groups in terms of encouraging them to come down to the...
See, even Fox News, again, designed for conservatives, willing to recognize, hey, we're about to listen to the rest of this hearing where they're going to break down how Trump's tweets affected far-right, terrible groups to plan and execute an attack on the Capitol and on our democratic process. Wow. They're, letting that information even be discussed. It's amazing.
The Capitol, potentially encouraging them to trouble. Now, again, we don't have the benefit of cross-examination here, so we're going to hear a very one-sided version of events here. But is that the link that you expect them to try to make here, that the president, in their mind at least, was trying to incite these right-wing groups to...
So again, it's not perfect. It's not how I would cover it, but he's definitely still giving more credence to Trump than I think he deserves. But even recognizing that all of these topics are being discussed. And the one correspondent said, listen, this is damaging stuff. This is disturbing stuff, is really, really interesting and I think impactful for Fox News to be doing and for Fox News to be spending their airtime covering. So a tiny little bit of credit and a tiny little bit of good news. Hopefully some people will be open to learning about what is coming out of the January 6th hearings. Of course, I mean right-wingers specifically, and possibly change their mind on Trump and possibly become a little bit more pro-democracy.